how to convert any wholesale deal into a subject to deal. I'm going to share with you my script, my conversations on how to talk to any sellers to do a subject to deal. Guys, keep in mind, most gurus are going to charge you $10,000 plus to walk you through my step-by-step action plan. And I'm going to give you the whole thing absolutely for free. I love doing subject twos and I want to make it simple. And I'm going to walk you step by step on what to say, the questions to ask, and the common objections you're going to get in any subject to deal. But before we get into it, do me a favor, smash that like button, hit that subscribe button to continue to receive the absolute best information from me and Zach. So today I'm going to share with you 5 parts of a subject to, and this is specifically if you've never done a subject to and you want to understand on how to talk to your sellers. Step 1, I'm going to teach you how to qualify all your leads to make sure you're getting the most of them. Step 2, I'm going to teach you how to disqualify traditional wholesale deals that you can convert to creative financing. In step 3, I'm going to teach you how to transition, actually switch your hat, switch gears, so you don't talk to them as a wholesaler, you can talk to them from a creative financing situation to help your sellers out. Step 4, I'm going to go into the actual talk. This is the conversation, and I'm going to teach you step by step on what to say to your sellers to get a win-win subject to deal. And last but not least, step 5, I'm going to share with you the common objections you're going to get from your sellers in subject to and how you can overcome them. So step 1, simply, every time you get any type of seller, you're looking for motivation. And here's the cool part. You don't have to change anything in your current business. So if you're a wholesaler, traditional fix and flip, or just like a buy and hold guy, if you're intaking the leads through your company, yourself, your assistant, whatever it is you go through a qualification. So if you guys go over to freewholesaling.com, me and Zach teach you the 4 qualifying questions to ask all your sellers so you can truly identify the motivation. Guys, don't change what you're doing with that. Keep it status quo. It's imperative that you walk all your motivated sellers through your funnel lead. Step 2 is you're going to look to disqualify leads for subject to. What do I mean by that? This simply means if your sellers don't qualify for a traditional wholesale deal, meaning a cash offer and quickly churn the property, then you disqualify them. Once you disqualify them from your traditional business model, you are now going to switch gears. And this is where a lot of wholesalers get hung up. And I'm here to tell you is you have to kind of change the hat you're wearing from that all cash guy to the quick close to switch to finding a solution to help the seller solve their problem. Remember, the more problems you can solve in real estate, the better you're going to do and the better your sellers are going to do. And that's your end goal. So we'll have to switch hats, and that's the disqualification process. People always ask me, well, Rick, what do I do when the thing doesn't qualify for a traditional wholesale deal? I'm going to take you back when I first started, way back to 2003 and 4. And I would have leads all the time that I just couldn't make work in traditional wholesaling. And once I learned that there's no way, there's just no money left in the deal, how can I take these deals down? Is I learned how to do creative financing. So here was my simple transition question, what I call an open-ended question. So this is what I started out with, and I'll show you kind of where we are now. So if you're brand new, you just need to have a go-to line. So the biggest problem wholesalers have is they don't ask the question when it doesn't fit their traditional wholesale model. So once you know that there's no way to take the deal down cash, you're going to simply ask a question like this. Mr. Seller, are you open to a creative solution to your problem? And shut up. What does that do? It really pulls out their motivation if they're open to working with you. Some people are very closed-minded and they have to do stuff traditionally with like realtors and title companies and everything's got to be perfect. When you ask a question like this, you're looking to get in their mindset to see if they're open to doing a solution. I'm here to tell you, some people just, no matter what you tell them, they won't do a creative financing solution. And I'm here to tell you, if that is their mindset, move on. You cannot force people to do a creative financing deal. I don't care if it's subject to, seller financing, whatever it is, they have to be open to it. I find a simple open-ended question reveals their true motivation if they want to actually solve their problem or they absolutely are closed-minded. Asking that simple question will help you switch gears and make that transition to do a creative financing solution for them. Once I get a curious answer like, hey, Rick, tell me more about this creative solution, then I have at least piqued their interest and they're opening to listening to me. If they say, is it one of those scams? I don't want to hear about it where you take over the mortgage or like, and then I'm on the hook forever. And my lawyer told me to stay away from that. And my wife's a realtor and she said, no way. That type of person, I'm just going to shake their hand and I'm going to move on with my life. Remember, you cannot force creative financing. They have to be open to it. So once we have an open-ended question with a positive response, your next step is to do what we call the hypothetical question. And they say, hey, Rick, listen, what do you got, Lo? I'm interested. I definitely want to sell this house. I don't think I can do it traditionally. And say, that's awesome. Ms. Seller, what if I could just simply take over your payments, keep your credit intact, you can move on with your life, you get some money up front, and your whole problem's solved? Is that something you're interested in working with me, or is that not interest you? And shut up. And once again, if I get a positive response to that, then you are really in with creative finance. Today, we're talking all about subject twos. And so for this video, we are going to talk about subject to deals only. So great. They're interested. Rick, what do I do now? He wants to talk to me. I've opened the question. I'm really excited. Guys, I'm here to tell you, I'm going to give you the simplest version and explain this in layman's terms because so many investors talk over their sellers, and I don't want to make the mistake of talking over to you. This is actually really, really simple, and I'm going to explain this process. Before we get into going over the actual conversations, we're going to go to step 3, which is why would a seller want to do a subject to? And guys, you have to understand the mindset of a seller and why they would do that. So basically, there are 4 reasons why most sellers would be open to do a subject to deal with you. I'm going to go through each and every one of them. They're in no particular order, but I've been doing this 20 years plus, and I'm here to tell you every time I do a subject to, one of the 4 always holds true. Number 1 is kind of the obvious. There's little to no equity in the deal. And what happens is they sometimes try to list the property, or they talk to a realtor, and the realtor basically says, for you to sell this property, you're going to have to bring money to the table to close on your house. Now think about this. The typical cost to sell a property in any given market is anywhere from 9 to 12%, depending on where you are, and realtor fees, negotiations, the whole thing. So if they don't have a lot of equity and then that 10 to 12% puts them over the edge, let me ask you, would you sell your property knowing you have to write a check to do it? The answer is simply no. Most people are freaked out by that, and they need to find another solution to get their house sold. These types of sellers typically own the property 2 years or less, and or they've put down a very low payment, anywhere from 5% or less. These are your typical sellers that are going to be most open to doing a subject to. As I said earlier, I kind of tied in that it's low equity. Number 2, most of them have either spoken to a realtor or they talked about listing into it. Once they figured out the cost, the realtor says, listen, you can't do it. And once again, the realtor tells them, you got to bring money to the table. So now they figured out they have no equity in the property. The realtor is not going to help them out at all because the realtor, quite honestly, doesn't know what to do. And guys, this is the reason we always say you want to network with realtors, because they're the first ones to find out for these types of properties. And I'm going to explain how you can work with your realtors to do that. Reason number 3, why they would sell in a subject to situation is they're behind on their payments. So I promise you, if they're behind on their payments, rules 1, where it's low equity, and rule 2, where the realtor won't help them out, is going to be the same problematic, and it's building up. So number 3, they're behind on payments. The key in a good subject to is not to let them get too far behind in payments. A really good subject to is 3 months or less behind on payments. Once it gets further than that, then all sorts of legal fees stack up, and then the more money that has to be made up to make up those back payments, the harder it is to do a good, successful subject to deal, because the idea is to take over the property and make it cash flow. Okay, the last reason why people do a subject to is the property is not in sellable condition, meaning they probably walked a realtor through. Maybe the homeowner was in the process of customizing the flooring or the kitchen, and their life event happened. They just ran out of money and they can't finish it. And the realtor says, I can't get you full value until you put it on the market and do X, Y, Z. Well, the seller says, listen, if I had the money, I would already do it. So a combination of all 4 of these things, a perfect subject to, all 4 of them are usually the rule, but you got to have 1 out of the 4 to make sure you get a good subject to deal without it. If you do not have 1 of the 4 present, in my opinion, you probably don't have the right motivation for the seller to do a subject to. So heed the warning. So let me review it again. Low equity, the realtor told them no, they're behind in payments, or the house needs some sort of finishing repair that the homeowner can't afford. Guys, these are the reasons why a seller would do a subject to. So this is the point. Once you've identified this, this is where you're going to do the verification process. So many investors skip this part because they get excited. I used to do it in the beginning. If you're like me, you get super excited, you get a deal. You don't skip the verification process because it's important you understand the terms of the person's loan. So the first thing you want to find out is how much they owe against the property. The sellers always know how much they owe against it. If you're struggling with this, or your seller is, simply ask them for the most recent loan statement and it'll have it all on there. Not only will have that, it'll have the loan number, it'll have the interest payments, it'll show you any type of arrears on it. It'll also tell you what the PITI, and guys, this is simply, the P is for principal, which is the pay down of the loan. The interest is the interest that's paid on the loan on the amortization. The T stands for taxes. So you want to know if the taxes is included in the payment, and the I is for insurance. Now, if they recently bought the property and it's a very low down payment, most likely the payment's going to include all that. Only mature loans do you find when people put down 20 or 30% is the tax and the insurance paid separately. So most likely that number is going to be inclusive, and you need to calculate it in your total numbers. So once you have that, then you want to verify how many years the mortgage is. And guys, sometimes there's some really sweet information in this. I've taken over 15-year AMs. That means that the most of the money goes to principal versus interest. Guys, really in the first 7 years of a traditional 30-year mortgage, a predominance of the money goes to interest. And then as time goes by, it slowly switches over to principal. That's why it's important. You want to gather all this information, and the key thing is you have to ask your seller and verify if they are behind on payments and how many payments. When something gets more than 6 months to a year behind, the numbers can add up quickly, and you need to know this going into it. Your last step is, once you verify, so say the payment's $1,000, you want to verify what the local rental rate for that type of property in that current market goes for. And that will help you calculate the potential cash flow for the property. Why is that important? Because if you got a $1,500 mortgage payment and the rents are only $1,600-$1,700, that might not be a loan you want to take over. And what you guys want to really understand, why I'm harping on subject twos, is what's happened over the last really 2 or 3 years, really the last 4 years. Interest rates have been at record lows. And in fact, in the last couple years, we've had rates almost under 3% on a mortgage, which is almost heard of. Guys, taking over a 3% loan can do incredible things for a subject to property in terms of cash flow, equity, and spreads you can make on a deal. This is why subject twos are just so ripe right now. So that's why you want to focus on them. Now we're moving on to really the meat and potatoes of a subject to. It's what we call the talk. I call it the conversation. Some people like to do a script with this. I prefer just to have a conversation. You've already got all of the financials out of the way. You've already qualified them for a subject to. And remember, you disqualified them for a wholesale deal. So now this is the part where you have to really slow it down, and you have to explain what you're going to offer to your client in layman's terms. And don't use fancy jargon. Using the word amortization and just complicated words will really just cause confusion. The easier you make it for your seller, the better your chances of them taking your subject to. I always tell people, try to explain it in the most simple format, like you're sitting in 5th grade with a student across from you. I'm here to tell you, the more complicated you make it and the longer you draw your explanation out, the worse your odds are going to be. You want to save the end for their objections, which I'm going to prepare you for the end of it so you can overcome and answer their questions. Remember, guys, in a subject to deal or any creative financing deal, it's imperative you understand you can't force the deal. Either they accept it or they don't. And here's the real secret most people won't tell you is this process I'm walking you through. So we disqualify them from a traditional wholesale deal. We qualify them for a subject to deal. We do the verification process. We've already reviewed why a seller would want to do a subject to deal. At this point, it should make such logical sense to your seller that you're the only real solution for them, that if you just explain it in simple layman's terms, this should be a no-brainer for both parties. Let's talk about it. So once again, simple, clear, and short explanation. If you go on for 5 minutes on this, you're going to lose your seller. It's important to engage them. And what I do is let them come and give you the objections. And remember, I'm going to give you the answers to the objections at the end of this video, so you have no worries. So when I first did this, I over-explained it. I actually confused myself. So the real key part in a subject to is once you verify it's not very far behind on payments, hopefully it's not behind at all, and hopefully the property doesn't need a lot of rehab, is to induce the seller to do this type of offer. They typically want to walk away with a certain amount of dollars, and you make it super convenient. And last but not least, leave them with their dignity with this. And the conversation goes, Mr. Seller, let me ask you, if I'm able to simply just take over your payments, continue to restore and build your credit, let you get on with your life, you don't have to worry about anything, what do you need to walk away from this property? And just shut up. And a lot of times here's what they tell me, well, what do you mean by that? Now, I'm here to tell you, I've had sellers like, just take it. I don't want anything. You deal with it. I don't want to deal with this. I have some of them will ask you for $100,000. Now, this comes to the point where you have to make a decision. Most sellers want some sort of money to basically sign the deed over you and take over the payment. Why not? It makes sense, right? That's the negotiable part. I've seen it anywhere from free to $100,000. Now, as a rule of thumb, if you want to do a positive cash flow and you want to rent this property out, you want to do a lease option, or you want to do like your own financer and selling it, remember, whatever you offer them a payment is you got to make up that money to get positive cash flow on the property. So if you offer like 30, 40 grand, remember, most buyers are typically going to put down less than 10% on any subject to financing deal, at least from my experience. On the higher end properties, it's a little bit different on it. So say you're selling the property for $200,000 and you wanted a 10% payment from your end buyer, that's $20,000. In that instance, if you wanted to pocket some money, if you gave your seller $5,000 or $10,000, then basically that would give you your assignment fee plus all the monthly cash flow, and then at the end, you would get the final payoff. It's a huge win-win. So the most critical part on a subject to is really what you negotiate for that upfront payment. Guys, listen, if you're on a limited budget and you don't have a lot of money, don't make offers that you can't come through unless you have a cash partner or somebody to back you up on it. I always like to offer a lower amount. I'm typically offering $3,000 to $5,000 on your typical average property at or below the median price. Remember, it's a starting point. If it's a good deal and you don't have to do any repairs and you have the funds to be able to do it and you can give them $10,000 and you're getting the property. Guys, keep in mind, when you do a subject to, you're eliminating any bank qualifications. You don't have to go out and get a hard money loan, which by the time you're done paying interest, points, and any type of penalties, because you only get like 12 months with them. How long can you do this? Well, if you had a 30-year mortgage and they're only in year one, you have 29 years you can use this financing, and it is absolutely amazing. It is a huge win-win for you. Guys, just be careful when negotiating the downstroke. If you offer too aggressive of a number, you can actually screw the deal up, and you're better off starting low and working your way up. And remember, if the property needs a lot of repair, then you have to equate that into the factor. If the property is behind on payments, if it's 6 months behind and each payment's $1,000, that's another $6,000 you're going to have to come out of the pocket. So make sure your seller's aware that you have to pay that. And remember, when you pay it for them, you are actually helping them save their credit and fix their mortgage. I simply say, listen, Mr. Seller, what if I could just take over your payments? I'll make up the 2 back payments on it. In return, it will restore your credit and actually build your credit, and you can walk away from this headache property and you can get a fresh start. Does that sound something like you want to work with? And once again, be quiet. And then this part 5 is where the objections are going to come out with subject twos. Now, keep in mind, most of your sellers have never even heard of subject to, or the things they've heard of is going to be from family members, realtors, and lawyers. You're typically going to have 4 objections on subject twos, and I'll walk through them in no particular order, but be prepared for them and understand it. So number 1, is this legal? And the answer is 100% yes. It's 100% legal. People take over payments, not just in real estate, but they take it over on car loans, on boat loans, even like long-term leases for office buildings and like small commercial buildings. You see, life happens, and sometimes there's changes that not everybody can see in the future. And when you sign a long-term commitment and you have a change in life and you can't traditionally take care of it, it's a perfect situation to do a subject to. It not only works in real estate, it works in all industries of business. And I want to let you know it's 100% legal. The second biggest question I always get, well, what about my credit, Rick? Like, what if I do that? You're going to like screw up my credit. To be honest with you, by you not making the payments and getting behind, your credit is already heading south. And the solution I'm offering you right now, Mr. Seller, is to make up those payments. Is you don't have to come out of pocket to pay that extra $5,000 or $6,000. If we do this deal, I'll go ahead and make those payments. and I'll give you proof I made those payments. That will restore your loan in good standing, which will repair your credit. And if you don't make payments, say we don't work out a deal and your house goes in foreclosure, you not only will you have bad credit, you'll have a foreclosure on your record, and that's going to pretty much prevent you from buying any property for the next 3, maybe even 5 years, depending on what you're going to do, or it's going to make it challenging. I want to restore your credit and move forward with you, and I believe I'm the solution to help you out with that. Well, Rick, I heard about this thing called like due on sale clause. What's that all about? Like I Googled it, and it says if I transfer the property, the note's going to be called due, and that's going to put me in a worse position. You know what? It's true. Most of the mortgages have a due on sale clause. I haven't looked at the details of all your mortgages. I'm in a position, if a due on sale clause was called due, I could either refinance the property, I could go sell one of my other properties, or I could get a loan for it. The due on sale clause is on me. And my experience is as long as the banks are getting regular payments, then they just don't care as long as the money comes in. When the money stops and the property goes into like a pre-foreclosure situation, then they're going to pay attention carefully. So the sooner we can get this deal done, the more I can prevent this. And remember, the due on sale clause is my problem, not yours. And I want to keep this property and make it work. So I want to see a positive outcome from it. And remember, less than 1% of loans are ever called due as long as payments are made on time. Okay, and the last objections I got, well, Rick, what if I want to buy a house or 3 or 5 years down the road? And this is a legitimate concern with sellers. And you got to be honest with them. That loan sticks to their name as long as it's still in standing, meaning until it's paid off in full. There's a couple ways. They can contact you 3 to 5 years down the road and go, listen, I got remarried, I got a new family, I want to get a home, I'm making great money, I got a great job, but I got this loan still outstanding, and my mortgage broker says I have to get this property sold or get this loan out of my name. So you got a couple ways. Now, worst case scenario, you could once again use other financial sources to refinance that loan or do something for them. But I never make that commitment and promise, because if you do, it's going to put you in a bad position down the road. So don't make that commitment. Number 2 is, since we're using the property for income, we can actually show the rent rolls for at least 1 year, if not 2 years, and you can give that to your mortgage broker, and that will offset the debt to income ratio of that property. And usually that will alleviate that situation. But I'm here to tell you, let them know that if you did not help them out, they would be in a position they probably would be very hard to get a mortgage in the future. And by them helping to do the subject to deal, you're actually helping their credit and giving them more options down the road. Guys, this doesn't always come up, but it does. Now, a lot of times I do subject twos, if they're leaving the country or they're going away or they're really old, then that's not a big issue. This issue's more targeted towards younger people that are doing subject twos. So guys, I really hope you enjoyed this video. My purpose is so you can sit down and easily explain how to do subject twos to your wholesale deals that don't qualify for traditional wholesale deals. Remember, you're in the job of helping people. So you want to walk them through and be honest. And the most important thing I can stress to you on this is you cannot force a subject to deal. Either it works for your client and they're super excited and you should be the only solution to do this, or it doesn't. If it doesn't, move on. So guys, I hope this video helps you out. Go out and do subject twos. We're in a wonderful environment to do it. Remember, go out there with a helping heart, help people out, solve as many problems as you can, and you'll be rewarded in the long run. So guys, do me a favor, hit that like button, smash that subscribe button to continue to receive the absolute best information from me and Zach, and I'll see you in the next video. Guys, have a good one. Thank you.